Good evening. The standby signal number 1 is in force as Super Typhoon Usagi heads toward Hong Kong. The observatory will issue the strong wind signal number 3 tonight. At 7 p.m., Usagi was centered about 610 kilometers east-southeast of Hong Kong. It's forecast to move west-northwest at around 18 kilometers per hour. The super typhoon is entering the northeastern part of the South China Sea and moving towards the coastal areas of Guangdong. As Kirti Nandwani reports, the weather will worsen tomorrow.
It could be the calm before the storm. While it was mostly fine and hot today, Super Typhoon Usagi is now heading our way.
Usagi is a mature typhoon. According to this forecast track, Usagi will be rather close to the vicinity of the Pearl River area on Sunday and Monday, and will pose a severe threat to Hong Kong. Due to the astronomical high tide, the storm surge induced by Usagi may lead to severe flooding at low-lying areas in Hong Kong. So the general public are requested to pay particular attention to the threat caused by Usagi.
Those living in the low-lying area of Taiyo, where a strong typhoon caused flooding and power cuts 5 years ago, are bracing themselves for the latest storm. I've put valuables and electrical appliances on higher ground, said this man. Construction of a flood prevention barrier that began 2 years ago has yet to be finished, and the contractor has urged residents to pile sandbags to stop floodwaters from rushing through. Airlines are not taking any chances either. Cathay Pacific, Dragon Air, and Hong Kong Airlines have announced the suspension of all flights from 6 p.m. tomorrow onwards. They will help affected passengers to make alternative arrangements. The monstrous storm swept through southeastern Taiwan in the early hours of this morning, bringing torrential downpours and creating giant waves of up to 30 meters. Usagi was closest to the island at around 2 this afternoon, packing winds of more than 200 kilometers per hour. Kirti Nandwani, TVB News.
A former Hong Kong delegate to the National People's Congress has warned that Beijing will take a hard line with democratic reform to try to stop any pro-democracy candidates from running in the 2017 chief executive election. This comes amid more debate on whether an open nomination system could possibly work within the framework of the Basic Law. Recent comments on political reform made by British and American officials have drawn strong criticism from Beijing, which accuse them of interfering with local affairs. Today, former NPC Deputy Ng Hong Man said the central government now considers Hong Kong the base of a power struggle with the West. He believes Beijing will now take a tough stance on democratic reform and that it would rather see no progress than allow those backed by the West to run Hong Kong. While the SAR government has yet to start a public consultation on the 2017 chief executive election, a proposal to allow nominations be made based on the number of public signatures received by candidates is being debated. Speaking to TVB News today, Civic Party leader Alan Leung said his party backs that proposal because the people of Hong Kong want to be able to have a say in who becomes their future leader.
We propose civil nomination as a means to counter this perceived attempt by Beijing to apply the sieve in Hong Kong so that people that they do not desire, but with people's support, will be sorted out and can never become a candidate for the chief executive in 2017. Now, this is where we come from. So long as this can be addressed, we are, of course, open to any proposal.
A pro-establishment lawmaker, Starry Lee of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, didn't completely rule out the idea. She said it'll depend on the fine print.
For example, if it's come to the nomination formal procedures, it may have a more stringent requirement, like they will have to produce their personal information, ID and residential address or other information. we have to sort out the technical thing first. And of course, if we can sort out, I think we can see how it works.
Law professor Albert Chan, who sits on the Basic Law Committee, reiterated earlier comments from Beijing officials that Hong Kong can't use civic nomination to overstep the authority of the nomination committee. But he agrees that people's concerns about candidates being screened out have to be resolved. Chen suggested lowering the nomination threshold and making the committee more representative. North Korea today indefinitely postponed reunions of families separated by the Korean War in the 1950s. A new round of reunions had been scheduled for Wednesday. Pyongyang said 6 days of reunions would be put off while it takes counter-actions against the South Korean puppet regime's ever-escalating war provocations. The surprise setback comes after weeks of improving ties between the two Koreas. The jointly run Kaesong Industrial Park recently reopened after being shut down for 5 months amid chilled relations. Seoul promptly criticized Pyongyang for today's move, which analysts see as an attempt by the North to gain advantage in some upcoming negotiations with the South.
Germans go to the polls tomorrow to elect their next government. The ruling coalition led by Chancellor Angela Merkel is in a close race to maintain power, as the latest polls show it with just a razor-thin edge. Alan Buchnier reports.
Despite Merkel enjoying overwhelming personal popularity with a 70% approval rating, latest opinion polls show her coalition with just a 45 to 44% lead over their closest rivals. No single party looks like it can take the majority of seats in a country that hasn't had an absolute majority in more than 50 years. Merkel's conservative Christian Democratic Union looks set to maintain its position as the largest single party in the lower house of parliament. Germany enjoyed relative economic success during the financial turmoil that swept through Europe following the 2008 financial meltdown. But Merkel's coalition partner, the pro-business Free Democratic Party, has seen a steep drop in popularity and looks unlikely to keep the number of seats needed to maintain the ruling coalition. Many blame the party for public infighting that's marred the past 4 years.
It will be more difficult for Angela Merkel because now she has a partner which is very, how to say, not so strong. It's a party who is very satisfied just being in the coalition, and that's it. The Social Democrats, I think they will make some points.
The center-left Social Democratic Party, led by Peer Steinbrück, is the strongest opposition party and possible partner in a new coalition led by Merkel's CDU party. That combination of traditional rivals led Germany from 2005 to 2009. The SDP, however, favors a shift to emphasizing growth in Europe rather than the austerity Germany has insisted on in exchange for bailing out weak countries such as Greece. And with so many smaller parties, such as the Green Party, also in the mix, and the margins so close, there could be weeks of protracted horse trading before a clear picture emerges. Alan Buchnier, TVB News.
To the latest in the Syrian conflict, the United Nations Security Council has met for the 4th straight day to hash out ways of resolving the dispute over the use of chemical weapons. But many believe it's a complicated issue that won't be resolved anytime soon. Here's Sonia Otero.
Chemical weapons in Syria is only the tip of the iceberg.
That's the message the UN Secretary General drove home to world countries still deadlocked on resolving the issue of Syria's chemical weapons use. The director of Human Rights Watch hopes the Security Council focuses on the bigger picture.
Only maybe 1 or 2% of the 100,000 people who have been killed in Syria over the last 2.5 years have been killed with chemical weapons. The rest of the people have died at the hands of conventional weapons.
And I think the problems which are confronting us, the major issues, none of them are going to be resolved during this high-level segment of the GA or in other segments.
In Washington, Foreign Minister Wang Yi reiterated Beijing will only support a political solution. The U.S. Secretary of State promised to do just that with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Through the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the U.S. and Russia are hashing out the terms of how to confiscate and destroy Syria's chemical weapons.
We talked about the cooperation, which we both agreed to continue to provide, moving not only towards the adoption of the OPCW rules and regulations, but also a resolution that is firm and strong within the United Nations.
Sonia Artero, TVB News.
As local football teams kick off the new league season, the pitch at Hong Kong Stadium is once again being questioned. Despite official pronouncements declaring it 100% ready, some doubt that it can withstand the rainfall from the expected arrival of Super Typhoon Usagi. Joao de Silva has more.
Nearly 2 months after Hong Kong became the laughingstock of the world due to pitch conditions during a match between football giants Manchester United and local team Kitchee, Hong Kong Stadium is ready for another football season. At least that's the opinion of the Leisure and Cultural Services Department, which yesterday issued a statement saying that after a special priority maintenance program, the stadium's pitch is ready. And the Hong Kong Football Association agrees.
Oh, should be okay, I don't see any problem. It's no comparison. So I think it's 100% improved.
Last year, there were more than 3,000 traffic accidents involving pedestrians around town. In some of these cases, people were actually in harm's way, and that's prompting calls for the government to improve road conditions. Ronnie Samtani has details.
A walk along Kennedy Road near Hopewell Center in Wan Chai may not seem dangerous, but
we now have many situations where there are intermittent footpaths where you can walk and suddenly the footpath disappear. Along Kennedy Road, there has actually been a domestic helper a few years ago who got killed at an area where she couldn't walk on the pavement because it's too narrow, and she was clipped by a taxi and she got killed. So it's a serious issue that needs to be addressed.
Last year, the Transport Department reported more than 3,700 traffic accidents involving pedestrians, which resulted in 3,800 deaths. Zimmerman started a campaign called Missing Links to identify pedestrian networks that need to be fixed. The district councillor says he's received more than 100 reports from the public on missing footpaths, narrow pavements, and unsafe crossings. But even though he has been communicating with the Transport Department about the problems, not much is being done. He says the problem is that the department prioritizes vehicular traffic over pedestrians.
Congestion, we can easily calculate the costs. We know how much time people sit in a car, we can calculate how much time is lost, and we can then calculate a financial impact. Unfortunately, we are very weak in measuring the economic impacts of improving pedestrian networks. So all of that makes it so much more focused on vehicular rather than pedestrians.
But the department insists that it treats pedestrians and vehicles equally when it comes to road planning, and that it has been actively working to enhance pedestrian safety and mobility.
To improve safety, the Transport Department has spent the last few years building more footbridges and underground subways to move pedestrians away from street-level traffic. But with the issue of broken footpaths and narrow pavements still looming, Zimmerman is calling on the public to help urge the department to fix these tricky tracks. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
The new Kai Tak cruise terminal was open for public tours today, but as Vicky Kung reports, some in the tourism trade worry that not a lot of ships would be using the terminal in the coming year.
Huge crowds flocked to the Kai Tak cruise terminal for the exhibition. The 850-meter-long wharf is Hong Kong's second cruise dock after Ocean Terminal in Tsim Sha Tsui.
I think Ocean Terminal is more convenient than here because they have MTR and bus.
While only taxis and minibuses can reach the Kai Tak terminal right now, the Tourism Board has arranged free shuttle bus services to pick up visitors from Kwun Tong and Tsim Sha Tsui during the 3-day exhibition. On top of the Kai Tak Cruise Terminal is one of Hong Kong's biggest public rooftop gardens. Some visitors said they came here just to see this harbor view, which is open for a public preview till tomorrow. More than 30 travel agencies and 17 cruise lines are taking part in the event.
I will say so. It is because
one of the cruise lines we spoke with today said it's ready to welcome mainland tourists in future.
Basically, we also have planned to have more appearance in China also. So I can say this terminal is always, I can say, is a hub for the cruise development in this region, not only for Hong Kong.
Authorities said 35 ships are scheduled to use the Kai Tak Cruise Terminal from October till next year. Some say that's not enough.
The cruise business so far occupies not a very big percentage in terms of the total sales turnover for the travel industry. But basically, I think gradually, I think the cruise business can occupy about 5 to 8% of the total Hong Kong sales outbound.
The first cruise ship to visit the Kai Tak terminal is from Singapore. It will arrive in mid-October and set sail for Taiwan afterwards. Vicky Kong, TVB News.
And that's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.